So tonight we are gathered to talk about anti-Semitism, which is often called the oldest hatred because it is as old as the Jewish people. In some ways, while tonight we celebrate 80 years of JCRC work fighting this hatred, I find myself wondering if this is a cause for celebration at all. Here we are, 80 years later, still at it, as threats grow and change around us. 80 years later, and anti-Semitic incidents have doubled in just the last 3 years. 80 years later, and anti-Semitic violence has invaded our American synagogues in an unprecedented way. 80 years later, and Jewish students ask us for help when they're bullied by peers who wish their relatives had died in the Holocaust. 80 years later, and the KKK is out and proud in Dayton's Courthouse Square. Meanwhile, Israel's flag is destroyed by counter-protesters of the same KKK rally. What do we have to show for 80 years of this work? What is there to celebrate? But in fact, tonight there is much to celebrate. Because tonight we celebrate our refusal to let this age-old hatred define how we respond to it. For thousands of years all over the world, from the Inquisition in Spain to the pogroms in Russia, to the Holocaust in Europe, to the killing of Jews on American soil in their houses of prayer in just the last year, Jewish communities have been victimized because of persistent and mutating anti-Semitism. But we celebrate tonight because over and over again, when it would have been completely rational to turn inward, we have instead reached out with an even stronger commitment to welcoming the stranger and with renewed vigor in fighting injustice wherever it lies. This is the story of Jewish survival against all odds, across continents and through generations for thousands of years, and this is the mission and work of the JCRC. So when it came to driving out darkness with light, this year brought much to celebrate. In the face of unprecedented attacks on our Jewish community and rising anti-Semitism, we reached out to other communities to learn and stand together against all forms of bigotry. In October, after the shootings in Pittsburgh, as more than 1,000 of you stood right here in this room with us. In April, at our Summit on Anti-Semitism and Hate, as together we learned tools and skills necessary to combat the rise in bigotry of all types. And most recently, at vigils at local mosques and churches after violence devastated Christian and Muslim communities. As the campaign to delegitimize Israel and alienate Jewish students raged across U.S. college campuses, we coupled our advocacy with opportunities to surface multiple narratives, and we expanded our community's capacity for difficult conversation about Israel. In October, we hosted the Parent Circle Families Forum, made up of Israelis and Palestinians who've lost loved ones in the conflict. Again, here in this room, Mazen Faraj, who lost a father in the Second Intifada, and Rami El-Hanan, who lost his daughter in a Jerusalem suicide bombing, talked together about their unlikely but unbreakable friendship, modeling reconciliation as a pathway forward for peace. And in May, with the help of a national organization called Resetting the Table, and in partnership with the Meyerson JCC, the Federation's Israel Center, and the Cohort for Strategic Israel Engagement Development, we hosted training for 20 Jewish leaders, giving them tools to facilitate tough conversations about Israel. Here's what they had to say about the 2-day skill-building workshop.
We live in a world where we have so many resources for communication and we think we're all pros at it, but the art of real conversations is becoming more and more lost.
It is so imperative right now for us as a Jewish community to be strong together, and that is only going to happen if we're able to really get vulnerable and be honest with each other. Resetting the Table training here in Cincinnati is really an opportunity for our leaders to drive civil conversation forward as it relates to Israel. Conversations that can have nuance, patience, and depth. We need to talk, and that's what we're doing here today.
So we live in a moment of what some are calling a crisis of polarization. And within the Jewish community specifically, there is no issue these days that is hotter, more contentious, more divisive than Israel. We organizationally are dedicated to sort of overcoming the patterns of avoidance and antagonism and siloing in order to support people to build a vibrant and authentic and meaningful, like a real bold conversation about Israel, drawing on our Jewish values, our collective identity, and moving towards a real sense of communal healing and being able to transcend those boundaries and cross the divides.
Many people are concerned. Many people feel that other people are stepping back because of things that happen around Israel. And I think instead of losing people, we need to bring them back and engage them.
I thought it was a really great approach into rather than avoiding differences, moving towards differences and learning from them and really hearing people. And beyond the conversation about Israel, it's really a great way, and as I had hoped, to learn how to facilitate conversations around differences of all types.
I am so grateful that Cincinnati's JCRC and the Federation have brought us in to invest in this kind of work for this community, because it is so rare and it's so needed, and what a profound gift it is to be able to do it.
So no doubt our work creating space for nuanced conversation about Israel and our efforts combating anti-Semitism reached new heights this year, but we didn't stop there. When news broke of families being separated at the US-Mexico border, we worked with congregations to host a donation drive and with Federation to set up a supplemental fundraising campaign. We advocated for immigration reform, and we connected our community with opportunities to volunteer in assisting new immigrants. As gun violence in this country set horrific new precedents, claiming the lives of more U.S. school-age children than on-duty U.S. police or global military, we used our relationships with elected officials to push for federal and state common-sense gun safety reform. And when Ohio Issue 1 created a pathway to lessen the glaring racial disparities in our prisons, we hosted an educational forum and organized to collect ballot signatures. We know the more people engaged in our work, the bigger the difference we can make. And that's the idea behind JCRC's civic engagement arm, L'Shem Cincinnati, which has facilitated hundreds of new relationships and connections for greater impact this year.
The fact that all these religions are coming and gathering together and then putting the differences aside and then just enjoying the moment, I think that's really a cool thing to do.
One great initiative that we've been doing for now 2 years is the Youth Interfaith Basketball Tournament, which we have done in partnership with Crossroads Church and the Islamic Center of Greater Cincinnati.
No matter what your belief system is, a three-point shot is a three-point shot. They don't really look at each other as that's a Muslim or a Jewish kid or a Christian or Hindu or whatever. They forget about that. All they see is a kid on a court.
With all the divide in our nation right now, it's amazing to see an interfaith collaboration, especially with our youth, the future leaders of our society. It's great to see them come together for some friendly, competitive fun and to have a great, meaningful time as well. In addition to the Interfaith Basketball Tournament, L'Shem Cincinnati has partnered with community benefit organizations throughout Cincinnati to help shed light on a variety of social issues.
One of the most well-received initiatives that L'Shem did in partnership with the Young Adult Division were around these Speak Up, Speakeasies, where it was an opportunity for young adults and others in our community to come out and learn about certain issues. Through those interactive experiences, the reflective conversation, the social happy hour fun of it all, those attendees really were able to grasp the depth of multiple issues that we're talking about, from environmental sustainability to comparisons between the Holocaust and the current refugee and immigration crisis that we're seeing in America today, to learning about the intricacies of systemic poverty in our city. It was really a great opportunity to see those who came out learn, grow, and get involved. Since L'Shem's inception in early 2018, we've engaged over 115 community members in issue advocacy, in their learning and their growth, and in connecting to the non-Jewish community and learning how there are opportunities to get involved, to discover their passion, and to help create a more just, safe, and vibrant community for everyone.